So we already discussed utilitarianism. Positivism by Auguste Comte. Positivism is this idea, it's this philosophy that basically humans have gone through these stages. At first, we were in the religious stage where we explain things, humans explain things using mythology and religion. We then went through that into the metaphysical stage in which we used principles or ideas to explain good and bad. And now, according to positivism, we're entering the scientific stage of human history. The scientific or the positivist stage. And this positivist stage means that humans can decipher right and wrong, good and bad, what laws should be put in place, how to create society by studying the world. And Comte says that we need to understand human behavior by studying humans. And so he calls this the science of sociology. Sociology, the study of humans. Why are we studying humans? Because by understanding humans and human behavior, we can then understand the principles of how to organize the best society. And that, instead of calling upon God, or instead of calling upon metaphysical ideas like justice and liberty, instead we can look on how humans behave, what humans need. It's the study of how humans act will help us understand how society should be. Realpolitik is the politics of reality. So similar to how Auguste Comte calls for the studying of humans and sort of a very realistic idea of how society should be, Realpolitik says politics should not be about romanticism or romantic ideas about nationalism, but instead politics should be about what maximizes your power. Okay? And if that means breaking a treaty, so be it. If that means going to war, so be it. Okay, Realpolitik is, of course, associated with Otto von Bismarck. Darwinism is that crucial scientific idea in the mid-19th century. Darwin's On the Origin of Species introduces his theory of evolution. The theory of evolution suggests that species come about as a result of natural selection. Natural selection means that certain species are better able to pass on their traits to the next generation. Not certain species. Certain beings within a species can pass on their superior traits to the next generation. And so those traits within the species will then be passed on and become dominant. And genetic or mutations that occur that are beneficial will result in those mutations being passed on to future generations. Inferior mutations will not be passed on. And so this explains how things evolve by passing on traits to the next generation. And traits are beneficial if they allow a species to better reproduce and survive in order to reproduce. Okay, Hegel is a philosopher. And Hegel is a philosopher of history, amongst other things, and we'll just discuss his theory of history. Basically, Hegel believes that all human history is sort of a history of struggle, it's a dialectic, or a struggle between two concepts. So there's an old established idea, and that idea is challenged by another idea. That idea is known as the thesis. The challenging idea is the antithesis. And over the time, those ideas will clash, and then there will be a synthesis. And that synthesis will become the new dominant idea, the new thesis, and then there will be new challenging ideas. And that is how humans have evolved over time. Our notions of good and bad, our notions of how things should be structured, there are dominant ideas and the challenging ideas over time. And Hegel believes that this is building up to, when we get that ultimate idea that can no longer be challenged, this leads to the end of history. Because history, Hegel defines as the development of human society, the development of how humans think about morality and how society should be structured. And so when we reach that final point where we've created the best system that best accounts for human morality, right and wrong, that creates the best society, that will be the end of history. And obviously Hegel is important because it influences Marx.
Was this idea like from a book or like in like a pamphlet? How was it
He
spread?
wrote this in all sorts of lectures he made, as well as books that he wrote, yes. And I'm not sure any specifics. Marx is, if you mentioned dialectic, you've done enough. Marx, of course, is inspired by this later. Marx is in the next generation. Marx changes Hegel's theory of history by saying it's not ideas that are clashing over time and transforming and leading to development, but instead it's clashes between social classes. Clashes between different social classes. And this he refers to as the material dialectic. Dialectic materialism. Okay, dialectic materialism. In other words, what's moving along that dialectic or that clash is material needs. And so, Marx says that there is, in the past, the landed elites were the dominant class. And the dominant class, according to Marx, puts all the ideas into place to perpetuate its dominance. So the ideas of good and bad, of who should rule, of how society should be structured, of what's wrong, those ideas are put in place by the elite class. Now, over time, the bourgeoisie challenged the old class, and there was this clash between these different clashes. And the bourgeoisie said, no, the old rules are wrong. Instead, we should have liberal ideas. Instead, we should have elections. Instead, we should have these things. Rights for individuals. And so now the bourgeoisie had emerged victorious in a series of clashes, such as the French Revolution. And now the bourgeoisie was the dominant class in Western Europe in the industrial age. So the bourgeoisie now controlled the government. The bourgeoisie created laws. The bourgeoisie determined what was right and wrong, what was good and bad. But, according to Marx, the bourgeoisie, just like the landed elites had problems, had internal contradictions, the bourgeoisie has problems too. And one of the problems is that the working class is growing rapidly, and the bourgeoisie is only looking out for itself.